Like, I always make it a point after every show to, like, thank the audience. Like, thank you guys for coming out here and supporting us. And, you know, I try to make an experience for them because I'm like, these people, whether it's just $15 or what, they spent their time with us, their Friday night with us. Some people, when I hear, like, they're like, I had a couple in the front row, they were like, this is the last date we're going on before we have our baby. And I'm like, that's so amazing. And I'm like, this is so cool that you spent your time with us. And then some people, they're like, we haven't been on a date in 6 years. We got a babysitter and we're here. And we're just like, this means the world.
Welcome back, America, to another episode of Pints and Professionals. What you just heard was new music by Nico Little with his song Blame. And I have a lot to blame for Nico because I lose a lot of sleep because of him. Just kidding. I love you, Nico. Anyways, on today's episode, we have Evan Lopez, who was kind enough to come all the way up from Kyle, Texas, to have a conversation with me. He enlightened me on so many things in regards to his own personal life and how he was a swimmer, well, actually, he's now my competition because apparently he does video as well. So, didn't know that, Evan. Thank you for letting me know that in my own episode, or in our own episode. Anyways, now the dude is so nice, so kind. He gave me a lot of insightful information about the comedy industry, his businesses, and he enlightened me on how cool it is to be a parent. So without further ado, here is Evan. So how was the tour of the cul-de-sac?
Cul-de-sac is great, man. This is a nice little spot you got here.
You know.
What do we have? A camera 1, camera 2?
Camera 2
3,
is in the seat. It was actually in the bathroom.
It was in the bathroom. I had a feeling. Whenever I go to a new place, like if I go to an Airbnb and I'm using the bathroom, I'm instantly like, all right, they're filming me right now. They're
watching.
Why would they charge $20 to sleep in their spare room?
It is
they're
kind
not watching this.
That whole thing is weird.
Yeah.
Inviting strangers into your household who you know nothing about is very, I don't know. It's weird.
Have you done Airbnb?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's kind of disgusting too. But then when you think about like going into a hotel, there's no telling what has happened in those rooms, and so it's like,
Yeah. I remember when Airbnb first started, it was much more like almost like grassroots, where it was like people were just like charging. Like I remember driving from Texas to California once, and I stayed at an Airbnb. Like I was just trying to find it as cheap as possible to like just stay the night, sleep, and wake up and keep driving. So I had no amenities needed. I just needed to sleep somewhere.
Yeah.
I paid $15 to sleep in somebody's side of their house. It was upstairs, open floor plan, and they had a curtain and another curtain. Like I was like, oh, I'm gonna get murdered here in the middle of the night. But I walk in at night and there was about 14 people in the living room. And now that I think back, I think they all were illegal. And it was like, you know, they all spoke Spanish, and I was so tired that like I was speaking Spanglish, and then I was like, I turned Asian and I just bowed out and went upstairs, and I was like, yeah.
Was there a limit on the stay? Because I know some Airbnbs you have to have like, 2-night limit or 3-night limit.
I didn't even check.
Okay.
It felt like it was, yeah. But what was also weird is there was rules. It was very The Handmaid's Tale, where they were like, you can't cross through this side of the house. Like they had bed sheets hung where you couldn't go to certain sectors.
Wow.
I woke up in the morning, empty house. It was just me in there. And they had like said in the ad that there was free like continental breakfast. I went downstairs. They had a lukewarm tub of cream cheese and a bagel out for me. But brother, I ate it.
I mean, when you're hungry. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you doing? Where were you headed out to California for? And what part?
I was heading back home. So I was born and raised in California.
Okay.
And I was living out in Arlington, Texas with a buddy.
Nice.
And I was just traveling back home. My stay there had been done. And I was just traveling.
What part of California? I'm from Riverside, California.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I'm from Palmdale, California.
Where's that?
In the Antelope Valley.
Okay. How far is that from like Riverside?
Riverside is probably 2 hours.
Okay.
Do you know Afro Man, Palmdale, come back to?
Really? I don't. I'm not familiar.
Wow.
You have to enlighten me.
You don't know Afro Man, Palmdale?
I know. Wait, Afro Man, same guy who sings 2 Zigzags?
Yeah, 2 Zigzags.
Yeah, same guy?
Colt 45.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, same guy. He had a song about Palmdale. He's what put us on the map.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
From California?
Yeah, originally from California.
How long were you there for?
Till I was 18, and then I moved to Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, yes. To go to college. I went to college in Puerto Rico.
You know, another famous comedian said some not so nice things about Puerto Rico.
Garbage people did. Yeah.
No, what was it like living in Puerto Rico?
It was amazing. Puerto Rico. I always think you just had Dean Stanfield on here recently.
I did, yes. Yeah.
I do my
And
homework,
he's from, he was born and raised in the hometown that I grew up in, Alpine. So just found that on the podcast.
Alpine, Texas?
Alpine, Texas, yeah.
Wow.
Yep. But
he has, I don't know if this is public knowledge, but he had talked to me recently about wanting to move somewhere else for a while. I don't know if he talked about that on the pod.
No.
But he had and my initial reaction is like, dude, you're in Austin, Texas. This is the comedy scene to be in. Why would you want to go somewhere else? But for life and everything, you got to go away. You got to grow and everything. If you've been in here in Texas, you got to go spread your wings. So I say go for it. And that was my whole thing with Puerto Rico was I'm just going to disconnect. I'm going to go to school somewhere completely in a different world. And it was that.
Were you fluent in Spanish before you moved there?
No.
Were you fluent after leaving Puerto Rico?
For the most part.
Okay.
Yeah. I was very good conversationally with Puerto Rican style Spanish because it is different. It's so fast. It's so much lingo. It's like a dance. It's musical with it.
One of the downsides of my complexion is that everyone assumes that I speak Spanish.
No.
And so I'm very terrible at it.
Wow.
My parents taught my brother and sister who are much older than me Spanish, and then they were like, "Fuck it, Ron, you're just gonna learn English." Yeah, we're tired.
How many siblings you got?
Two other brother and a sister. Both.
Okay.
Shit, I should know this. Brother's 52, sister's 53, so they're much older.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll get in Ubers, and the people will see my name and immediately start hitting me with the Spanish. I go, "I'm so lo siento, no puedo hablar español," and then
they see you walking up and they go, "One of us," and then.
But growing up, or what did you study in Puerto Rico?
Nursing school.
Nursing. No
school.
shit.
Yeah.
My wife's a nurse. She's
really?
Wound care. Specializes in wound care and ostomy.
Oh wow.
So okay.
Emergency room.
She'll visit people in the emergency room if there's a consult needed for bed sore or whatever other gaping wound that individual might have. But she's kind of just works on every floor wherever they.
That's
need
awesome.
Her. It is, but it's also extremely grotesque, some of the stuff that she deals with, and it made me question who the hell did I marry, because she loves it.
Yeah,
she loves it. She's one of those people that we need in those positions for sure.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't want to be a nurse. Well, it was just I had zero passion for it. I had in the sense of I'm super into being healthy and longevity and all this stuff.
Sure.
But when I went to nursing school, one of the things that turned me off was and a lot of it's coming to light now, with pharmaceutical companies. I remember taking pharmacology classes, and you just read about all the side effects and everything that happens, and people taking this pill. And I started I would just go to do my clinicals, and I would read what the patients were taking, just because that's what you're supposed to do, is just learn everything you can. And I'd be like, oh, they're taking this because they're taking this, and they're taking this because they're taking this, and this is causing this, so that's why they're taking this. And because a lot of it is non-sequelae illnesses, which are things that you get in the hospital while you're getting treated for something else, is what they make 80% of the profit on. So that was really opened me up to oh, this doesn't seem like this is trying to make people healthy.
And you made this discovery in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, I was literally sitting in pharmacology class because and I would talk to the teacher. And I remember the teacher got mad at me, and he tried making an example out of me. And he was just you need to stop thinking outside of your scope of work. He's you give them the medication, and that's your focus. You don't worry about what they're, and I was oh, this isn't holistic at all for fixing them. So that particular side of it was just I knew I would always get frustrated with it. But what your wife does and the emergency room and all these things are so necessary.
Absolutely.
So it's because everybody wants to be oh, modern medicine is terrible and blah, blah, blah. We need to go back to the old ways. But I'm there's so many components of modern medicine that is amazing and life-saving,
Yeah. When I hear stories like that, it's tough to take off my conspiracy hat and think that everything is just intertwined into making money for larger corporations. But that's another conversation we can have later on. How long did you last? Did you go into Did you go into the nursing field, or you just were like, I'm done?
I was done.
Okay.
I most of the time, so like I went to nursing school, and most of the time was spent smoking marijuana and drinking and making music. Like I really loved making beats and rapping at the time, and just like I love just creating stuff. And that's where like a lot of my love for like doing creative stuff in general came from, with living in Puerto Rico and just getting that time to just like do whatever I wanted. And I literally would just do enough to graduate, and like I mean, when you're in nursing school, it's like 8-1 girls to guys. So like there are reasons that like you're like, I could hang out here for a while.
I could tolerate the corporate bureaucracy.
I'll do it.
So how long did you stay? When did you get in Puerto Rico, and when did you leave?
The exact years, this is how I know I'm getting old, dude, is the exact years. I went, I was there for 4 years. Okay. And I believe it was from 2009 to 2013, I believe, is when I was there. And then, because I had went to a junior college before. I swam growing up, and I swam for a junior college, and I was going to transfer to Cal Poly to swim for their school, San Luis Obispo. And at the same time, I was boxing and competing, and I know I've weird life.
Dude, I'm learning. So this is awesome.
But at that, and then I remember talking, because I swam an event that like was very strenuous. It was the 400 IM. It's 16 laps, and it's 4 of each stroke. So it's a very brutal.
Yeah.
And it's the only reason I swam it and like could do good at it was because it didn't require you. It took a lot of mental stuff. And I had no physical. Like if you look at me, like I don't even look like the same species as like Michael Phelps. Like I just had to do an event that like people would like burn out on and like not want to do.
Okay, for sure.
So then I literally was at a crossroads where I was like, do I want to continue to swim and go to Cal Poly, or do I want to go to Puerto Rico and box? Because that's like the huge thing out there. And my college swim coach at the time was like, do you want to continue to swim the 400 IM, or do you want to like go drink pina coladas in paradise? And I was like, okay, coach. Well, if you're giving me the okay to do this, then I'm going to go to Puerto Rico. And it was amazing.
You and my wife have a lot in common. She was also a swimmer, but it was in high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And she really liked it because she could like just crush large Domino's pizzas after
it's the best, dude.
Yeah, because you're just burning so much calories.
I would literally just get a rotisserie chicken and like a loaf of Italian bread. And like that would be my dinner. Like I would make family size spaghetti bowls and like just eat everything.
Okay. So after you left Puerto Rico, did you have a plan as far as an occupation, a career? Did you want to continue the creative stuff?
Yeah. So I knew that I wasn't going to, and my parents were like, whenever your kid graduates from college and racks up all the student loans and everything, they're just like, okay, so you're going to do this? And I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that at all. I'm going to figure this out. So I worked construction. I got into graphic design and was like selling a lot of t-shirts. Like I started like a t-shirt printing business.
Wow. Okay.
Just to try to make money. And I was doing music, and I was like, I'm going to try to like make music and do this. And that's how I got into video production. Was I needed music videos. Cause I was like, if I'm going to do that, I need videos. And I was like, I can't pay anyone, so I have to buy a camera and learn how to do this. And
I'm glad you realized that.
Yeah.
Every once in a while I get hit up for a music video, and I'm like, you really don't, you wouldn't be able to afford it, honestly. If I'm,
Brother,
so
we could talk for days about those conversations, because as I developed my own like video business, I had every one of those conversations, and I'd be like, they'd be like, listen, the exposure you'll get once this, and I'm like, brother, like,
wow. Yeah. Exposure doesn't pay my credit card bill that I just bought this camera with.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. And when people are always just like, this should only take 30 minutes to film this.
Oh,
and then
you
like,
tell
no.
me. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, no, this is a 6-hour shoot.
Yep.
But yeah, and then I started getting into video, and it was like, I had so many credit cards open. I was like literally musical chairs of credit cards.
It's very easy to do. And it's fun until you get at the end of the month, you're like, shit, I have to pay this off.
Yeah, and just like literally being like, okay, the interest is about to start on this one. Let me open up this one. Another 15 months of life. And that's how I literally started a video production business that I still do. I'm about like 50
awesome.
and 50.
Good.
I was flying a drone, filming a friend at his pool or at a public pool. And this lady came up to me and she was like, do you do this professionally? And I was like, I didn't at all. And I was like, yeah, of course I do. And then she was like, my husband works for a marketing agency and they need somebody who does video. And I was like, great, I'm your guy. Like literally no experience except shitty music videos.
Fake it till you make it.
And he called me. She's like, can I give him your number? He called me that day and he was like, oh, I have these projects in Las Vegas. I was living in Huntington Beach at the time. He's like, in Vegas, casinos that I need to film some stuff with. And, you know, is that something you got? I was like, yeah, we work with casinos. And then he was like, great. Do you want to meet at 8 a.m. this coffee place? And I was like, yeah, sounds good. And literally, brother, I left from there, went to Toys R Us, bought as much poker kits and everything they had to film a reel, like a highlight reel. I went home, filmed it, made a website, made a business name that I changed 4 years after having the business. I was like, this shit's gay. And filmed this like highlight video demo, put it all on the website, had it all set up like where it looked like it was a real website, and went to the meeting the next morning. And I pull up and he has my website open on his laptop. He's like, this is great stuff that you already have this. So it was crazy. And I was like, oh yeah, you know, but and then I ended up working with him for a while.
You got the job.
Yeah, I got the job.
Did you ever reveal to him after the fact?
Just now, brother, if he's watching this. No, but I love I like hearing those stories and I like telling people those stories because it's like, no one knows what they're doing. And then you just literally just have to do it. Like I was watching it as gay as this Gary Vee video this morning.
Oh, I can't stand Gary. He was my guy from the get-go and then he just became annoying.
Yeah, no, he's the worst. I hate how he's like, we're going to make a deal. You know what? This just came to me. Let's do a giveaway, give 10,000 of these and post that on the socials right now. Like he's so, I don't know. He does irk me. But he every now and then will drop a gem. And everybody he talks to, he's just like, just do it. Just go live. Just do this. Just stop overthinking it. Just do it. And that's like, I think paralysis by analysis, like stops so many people from doing what they want to do before it starts.
Yeah. He actually came and spoke at Texas State, where I'm from.
Oh, really?
Shout out, represent. Where I went to school, not where I'm from. Went to school there, and he came and spoke. And he was talking about one of these days, like, you're just going to get advertisements on your phone. And this was 2010 maybe.
Wow.
And I'm like, there's no fucking way that's ever going to happen. We're never ever going to get advertisements on our phone.
Wow.
And this is before social media really blew up. I don't even know if Instagram was around then. And then lo and behold, he turned out to be right. And this was when he was really into selling his wine at the time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he came and spoke to us. And I remember the cool thing that he did. He's like, I'll give $100 whoever wants to ask a question. And like everyone threw their hands up and some kid went and asked a question and gave him $100. So that's what made me become a fan of him in the beginning. And then over time, I don't know, I got exhausted with his mentality, but he's good at what he does.
That's pretty spooky that he did actually like, cause he is the wine guy who just like, I always don't give him enough credit for being like, okay, he does actually call a lot of stuff. And even with, I mean, there was so much with like Facebook ads and everything that he did predict where it would. But man, he's right now saying that a lot of it is going to be live shopping on social media. That's what he's pushing now.
Probably going to be right.
Stuff on TikTok, but he also was all in on the NFT stuff, which
that didn't really pan out, did it?
No. That was the one thing, like, logically I couldn't get behind. Yeah. Because it was like, you own it, but I'm like, someone can screenshot it and print it out. Right. And they have it too. And they're like, yeah, but they don't have the code for it. And you're like, it's not the same. Who needs the code? Yeah. You know?
One of the photographers that I took a class from online during the pandemic, he sold something through an NFT thing or whatever, and he said he was able to pay off his house because of it. I'm like, man, good for you. Good for you. And he already done it. He already completed the transaction. So I'm like, oh, that's awesome. But then after that was 2020. And so after that, never heard anything about NFTs ever again.
Yeah, but they kind of went away pretty hard.
Yeah. So you started working with the guy in the casinos. What else did you do? Were you still doing construction and working with the guy as well?
Yeah, that was like a time when I was doing both because I wasn't making a lot of money with, and the casino guy, eventually I ended up getting screwed over and not paid for some work. But it was like in the beginning, and I'm sure you know this, like when you're starting to do these certain things, you'll take whatever money you can get. And also, like I was waking up for one of the trips we did, I woke up at like 3:30 in the morning. We drove to Vegas. We're there by the morning, filmed all day, a bunch of casino stuff. Drive back that same night, and I would deliver them like, you know, a minute highlight and like 60 pictures of their different products.
Okay.
And I'd be like, that was $300.
Oh.
That I would get in 60 days because of the way their payouts were.
They were net 60?
Yeah.
God damn. I'm like.
For $300. I'm like, dude, give me some chips.
Yeah.
You know.
Now we're down to, I think I'm like minimum or maximum net 15 on my corporate clients, because I know they got, you know, their finance compliance department, whatever.
Yeah.
And now with the ability to pay invoices just electronically, Venmo, there's just so many different ways. Like I don't really want to wait 30 days to get my money after I already delivered everything to you guys.
Yeah.
It's not fair. There's
something fun about it though. When you do get it 30 days later, and
you're just like, oh my God, yes.
Hit the account.
Pay rent.
It feels nice.
So after that, what were you doing to finance? Where you live? You still live in California, right?
Yeah. I was
Okay.
living, a buddy and I were sharing a house
Okay.
with his girlfriend.
Palmdale still?
No, this was in Huntington.
Huntington,
When I was
okay.
living, yeah.
I got to imagine it's pretty expensive in Huntington.
Yeah.
At the time, at least.
Yeah.
And probably
but
still now.
Yeah, it's probably got even more expensive. But this was at a time when it was a deal where it was his girl's house and they rented me a room in it. So it was like not insane to where I could actually afford to live there.
When did the whole comedy thing kind of get into your brain?
Comedy had always been something I wanted to try.
Mm-hmm.
And I always naturally there's always this like thing where it says that you can like count the stars going back but not forward, like where you're like, oh yeah, this led to this and this was kind of in that same vein.
Yeah.
Like I was doing a lot of like vlogs at the time and like trying to make funny videos, and I was like, oh, I was doing bits and I didn't even realize like it was just the live thing that I wasn't doing, but I was like crafting jokes and I would write them, and also like a lot of like just improvising, like crowd work almost type stuff. And it wasn't my girlfriend at the time. We moved in from Huntington. A buddy of mine, we were about to move back to Texas. Like I love Texas. I thought it was so cool. We were going to move back. The reason I moved back from Texas to California was because my girlfriend at the time, she was living in California still. Mm-hmm. And my buddy and I were high one night, watching Inception.
Okay.
Which is like panic attack inducing. My girlfriend calls me that she was cutting an avocado and put a knife through her hand.
Avocado hand. That's a real thing. Yep.
The things girls do to get you back, dude. But she stabbed herself through the hand, and like it's this crazy image of like a knife through her hand. Like it literally like just like went through.
Oh my God.
Super sharp knife. I should give him a shout out. I don't remember. But
Cutco?
Yeah. But I had this crazy like thing where I was like, I can't, because I couldn't be there with her. I couldn't go with her to the merch, like nothing. And I felt terrible. And I was like, I can't be in a different state and this stuff happening. I was like, I think it's time for me to go home. And so we were moving. I went back to California, was in Huntington, and her and I were like, let's go to Texas. My buddy who I lived with, he was like, you guys can stay with me for a couple months and like just pay rent and then till you guys can get your own place. And we're like, cool. And then we went to a buddy's birthday party in Ventura, California. And he had this super dope apartment that was like across the street from the ocean. Like you could see the view and everything. It was amazing. And they had an amazing price. I think they were paying something like $1,600 for a 2-bedroom apartment that had an ocean view.
That seems pretty cheap.
It was very cheap.
Okay.
All the other places in this place were like $2,500, but they just got retroactively put in there at that price because they've been there for a while. And her and I, at that moment when we saw the view, we were like, because I went to college there and everything, so I knew the town, I loved it. And before I went to Puerto Rico, I was in Ventura swimming, and then we were like, why don't we try to live here for a little bit? Like we could live by the beach and just see what this is like. And then it just so happened the couple that lived in that apartment were planning a trip to go sheep shearing in Australia. Like this crazy, dude, shout out to Trevor, dude. He lived lives, dude. He would shear sheep all over the world. And so I was like, dude, what would be the chances of us getting your apartment and sliding it at that price? He's like, I don't know if they would go for that. So we contacted them, wrote them an email, and I went and introduced myself to them. And I was like, hey, you don't have to change a single thing. Don't have to paint it. Don't have to do anything. We'll take the same price. And then they were like, well, we'll raise it $50. And we're like, all right, you got yourself a deal. I guess we'll take it. So then we moved to Ventura. And what's so dope is they still painted it. They put in wood floors and everything. Like we just came up so hard on that apartment.
Now, was this the owner of the apartment complex or like the managing
like
people?
The property management people? So
that's nice of them.
It was so amazing because I think it was like a health thing. There was definitely cancer causing everything in that floor. But when we moved into Ventura,
asbestos as carpet.
Yeah, exactly. When I moved into Ventura, that's when I saw there was an open mic for the comedy club, Ventura Harbor Comedy Club. And I was like, I wanted to do this. I was already looking in Huntington, like for open mics and stuff like that. And then when I went to Ventura and I saw the Harbor Comedy, I like practiced. I wrote like 5 minutes and I practiced it for like 2 weeks. And then I went and did it, the open mic. I loved it. It was.
Any hesitation with like interacting with crowds? Were you scared? Stage fright?
On the first time, I was so nervous, and you just hear these stories of people doing stand-up the first time and like not remembering anything,
blacking out.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm gonna rehearse this so much. So I gave myself 2 weeks. I said 2 weeks. This is the date I'm going, and there's no getting out of this. I even emailed the person who ran the mic. Shout out to Eric Crispin and New Blood Ventura. And I told him I was coming, and he was like, yeah, that's great. So I felt like I was locked in, because a lot of times, this is why I always tell comedians, like if they want to try it, just set a date and don't talk yourself out of it. Because if somebody says, oh, I'm going to wait, I'm going to do right like 5 minutes and blah, 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 it never really happens. But if you set a date and you're like, I'm going to go to this one and I'm going to do it this time, it like forces you to build the airplane while you're jumping off the cliff kind of thing. So I like really, and over those 2 weeks, like I refined this 5 minutes of just, and I would every night, my poor now wife, I would be like, I need you to sit here and listen to these jokes and tell me if this is funny. Dude, I would brutalize her. It's worse than physical violence on your significant other, to make them sit there and listen to your shitty jokes, dude, in an empty room. And I went and did it. Like I went to the comedy club, and it was one of those things where like I kind of blacked out. I was like, it was like I have picture memories of the crowd of just, and
full house, or
there's probably like 30 people,
which is pretty good for an open mic.
Yeah. Open mics in other places besides Austin are completely different. Okay. Austin, LA, because I ended up I started going religiously, like, 4 or 5 nights a week out to open mics and driving all over doing spots since that moment. And LA is pretty similar, and New York is similar to Austin in the sense that there's so many comics that open mics are just like these weird things.
I gotta go to one. I haven't been.
You haven't been to one, brother?
Austin,
brother.
Not.
Welcome to the other side, dude. It's
is it hit or miss? Is everyone bombing? Is it? Describe to me what's happening here in Austin at the open mics.
Well, it's more of a vibe.
Okay.
And a lot of them, especially, I haven't been to a lot in a while, but they're usually comics. It's mainly comics who aren't laughing at the jokes. So it's not like there's not an audience that's excited to be entertained and wants to hear jokes. It's a lot of other comedians that are there just to do their time and are having to sit through your set. And then there's also a lot of weird mixed energy of some people don't want to laugh because if they're laughing at you, you're going to get more laughs than them. Yeah. Like there's so much mental illness at open mics.
Wow.
But it's fun to experience.
This sounds really enticing for me to go. I'm going to get some time. I'm going to check it out.
It is, it's different.
So when you were doing all these open mics down in Callaway, you weren't getting paid, right? You were just
No.
going to get the reps in, right?
Yeah, brother, I was even paying to do some of these spots. In LA, there was this lucrative business that was created, which they tried to bring it here and it got shut down real quick, where you would pay these places to go and perform. And where there was such a demand for open mics in the sense that comedians needed them,
Yeah.
and there wasn't enough supply, that people were making their own artificial mics, not open to the general public, but you would get to be on stage in front of other comics, and you would pay to perform. So like there was nights I would drive to LA just to guarantee, like I'd go, to a couple like lottery mics, like the Hollywood Improv, another, this coffee shop. But I would also pay for like these 3 other slots to be able to guarantee I would perform. And I would pay like $10 for or $12 for 10 minutes, or $8 for 5 minutes. And I would end up spending money just to get to perform, not including food and gas and everything.
Yeah.
So it was like, which I think that's terrible. I don't think LA is the best place to start because it's very hard to get a foothold in the scene. And I think Austin might be a little bit of that now, where there's just not enough there's not enough crowd at these open mics to make them fruitful.
Right. But I guess to counter that, if you are going to these crowds that is made up of comedians and you're able to get a laugh out of them, you're able to get some sort of reaction to your bits, don't you find that a little bit like rewarding in a way? Like, hey, I came into this very negative, and I'm not saying it's negative, but I came into this very different environment, and yet I still succeeded, and I made them laugh. I made them chuckle.
There are a lot of benefits to still going to the open mics. The biggest one is networking, is that you get to meet the other comedians.
Okay.
And you do get shows, you get to learn, and you get your crew, and then someone gets a show, and then you go, oh shit, I'll go support, and there's a chance you meet the person who's there.
Yeah.
And then you have to be out doing that kind of stuff. The one thing about some comedians become like killers at open mics. They become very funny and they become a comic's favorite. And it usually is not great for regular shows because you start saying very dark stuff to get the other comedians to laugh. Because that's like part of the thing at the open mic. If you want to make the comedians laugh, it's not necessarily going to be what makes Gen Pop laugh, dude. It's going to be, you got to go dark with them, dude. You got to pull out the dead baby jokes, domestic violence, and
that's how it is kind of with my wife, because she and her fellow comrades or nurses, they have a very dark sense of humor.
Same thing with cops.
Well, yeah, and I feel like I don't necessarily
gallows humor.
Yeah, and I get that. That's maybe a sort of a therapeutic way to deal with these traumatic situations that are happening every single fucking day.
Yeah,
and then when I try to drop a dark humor line with my wife, she's like, Ramon, that's over the line. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like, I'm sure you're telling far worse shit at work than what I just said. So that's very interesting.
That's hilarious.
Now, as far as the comedy scene, so during the pandemic, were you here in Austin during the pandemic?
I moved here. Well, I don't even know. How long did the pandemic last? What years was
let's
that?
say, were you here in 2020?
I moved here April 1st, 2021.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So it was kind of still, in California, it was very much still happening.
Yeah. So one of the things that I noticed from the breweries during that time is everyone's struggling, but they're all supporting each other. So one of my favorite breweries, Nomadic Beer Works, they had a surplus of like cans, and some brewery needed the extra cans because they were doing can service now. So they gave them their, whatever they have left over. And there's a lot of helping out each other in that industry. I'm like, that is very awesome. And, all tides raises all ships or whatever. And I try to, take that element and incorporate it into my own business of where I can find the videographers that can help me out. And, do you think that the comedy scene is like that now, or is it just, do you think other comics are trying to help each other in this industry, or is it very personal and I don't know? It's
honestly, I love that aspect of it. I subscribe to that. And the scene is such a big scene.
It is.
To where it's fractured, and you have some people that do that, and you have some people that don't do that. You have gatekeepers, and you have people who are just like, let's just help the community.
Sure.
And I really like the approach because it feels good to try to help other people and to give people a spotlight and also just boost them. And you get a lot out of it, even through just camaraderie. And I think it ultimately should be that. I think scarcity mindset is like what can ruin a scene.
Yeah.
And that happens in smaller scenes. Like there was a few very toxic people in the scene that I was in before in Ventura.
Name them. No, I'm kidding. You don't have to do it.
I'm waiting till I go there and headline all the fucking clubs, and then I'm gonna fucking destroy them.
Drop your dong on them.
Yeah. No. But it was very gatekeeperish, and I always thought it was so gross. And I think, a lot of people, I don't think Rogan gets the credit that he deserves within this scene, because he's almost like and I think it's always no one doing better than someone talks shit about that person,
right,
or about their peers. But you just see a lot of fucking people just yelling up and being like, oh, Rogan's not funny, blah blah blah, like all this shit. What he really created and the opportunities, like some people are talking shit and they don't realize their opportunities are still connected to like the wave blast that he did out here. And he kind of started that mindset, I feel like, with his podcast and just like the whole thing. I mean, I've probably been listening to Rogan since I don't know how many years, like pretty close to the beginning. So like, I think I've developed that mindset with comedy and just like creativity because he did it on such a big level that I'm like, oh, it works and it feels better. And you have a good group of people around you.
He created that game plan and it worked through just I don't know, work ethic and not caring about the analytics of things and, just having fun too. I believe, what he does is somewhat based in just having fun. And I think there's a lot to learn from that.
Mm-hmm. The analytics thing is such a great point to make because I know so many comedians that they're just so focused on views.
Yeah.
Rather than like, just do something that you want to do, have fun with it. And if you enjoy it, like that's the success in it is you shouldn't be trying to accomplish something with what you're doing other than I want to create this. I want to make it. I want to make people laugh. And that's why I'm doing it.
Right.
Rather than got to feed the monster.
For me, there are two components of that. Yes, I want the views because I want sponsorships. I want this to be funded in a very small portion, but when I do blow up, or if that day ever comes, I want to be able to get to the individuals that need that elevated support. Yeah. So that way they can come on this podcast, talk about who they are as an artist, who they are as a business owner, and then hopefully that can benefit them in a way. And it is tough to not look at the analytics, but one thing that I keep telling myself is when I'm 80 years old, 90 years old, I can look back and watch these podcasts and be entertained of what I did, you know? So that's something cool about these podcasts. And as far as the comedy scene here, well, when did you get to Austin? I know you were when we left off, you were doing the comedy open mic nights in California. And then what got you to Austin, Texas?
It was Rogan talking about the scene.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I moved out here, and California was just getting so crazy.
Yeah. Yep.
So the one downside of living in a cool apartment across from a park that has a view of the ocean, a lot of people meet up to protest there. And that was starting to happen quite a bit, where during all the protests during COVID, there were so many weird protests going on. There was one day a furry protest, and there was Black Lives Matters the next day, and then it was like COVID lockdowns the next day, and then it was like kill everyone who doesn't want to lock down the next day. So it was like becoming this thing where they were all meeting at this park, and we were like, this is insane, we gotta move. But what was crazy was it was a lot of cool things happening at the same time, where, so I mentioned I started a t-shirt printing business.
Yeah.
I still do it to this day. And I started it that long ago. I mean, when I first got back from Puerto Rico, so I don't know how long. It would have been at least 8 to 10, probably about 8 years at the time. I'd had it, and I was just making maybe like I don't know, sometimes not even a couple hundred a month. It was like less, and then some months it'd be like 300 around Christmas or something. And it was like this thing where my girlfriend at the time, we bought a heat press. We would like actually buy the t-shirts, We would do everything.
Okay, that was one of my questions. Were you actually doing the printing?
Yeah, dude.
And holy crap.
We were doing, it was like a little sweatshop in the garage. Literally, we were sweating. And we would do every single one where we were just like, you know, every time we got an order. It was great because we're like, wow, we got 5 orders. And then we're like, fuck, we got 5 orders. We got to go heat up the press and do this and then take it to there. Then we had little cards. We were writing notes. So it was like a legit business.
Yeah.
And then there started to be, I don't know if you know about print on demand, where there was like merch by Amazon. There was all these different like print on demand services where basically you would do the graphic design, create the listing, and then they would print it and ship it when an order went through.
Right.
So you could scale it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you get 1,000 orders, you're like, fuck. It was like, cool, we'll get the royalty, the percentage, and then, you know, they'll do all the work.
Right.
So like over time that started developing in our business. We got away from doing the heat press. And then during the pandemic, this is where the copyright gets interesting. Everybody had all these checks from money, like during the pandemic. Like they were doing those crazy checks.
Those Biden bucks
or
Trump bucks, whichever one came in.
So everybody...
I love those. Those are awesome.
Yeah.
More of those, please.
Everybody was getting money. And then all the stores were shut down. So online shopping went crazy.
Yeah.
So the business started really boosting. And then at the time, The Mandalorian came out.
Oh, yeah.
And Baby Yoda just took over. Grogu, for those who really care about the naming, was blowing up. And I literally, it's like one of the only golden like things I ever fucking was like, this is going to be huge. There was no merch online for it. Jon Favreau, the creator, was like, yeah, we didn't end up creating merch for it. We only had like this picture. And, you know, he's like, we're not going to go after anyone who like makes merch just because we want our fans to have it. So I was like, holy shit, I think there's something here. Overnight, I literally started making so many Baby Yoda designs of every niche. I was like, Baby Yoda, put a fucking stethoscope around it and make it for nurses. Put a fucking briefcase in his hand and make it for lawyers. Put a fucking mask on it and make it for people who want people to wear masks. Like I literally just started doing, dude, I was even selling fucking Baby Yoda face masks. Like I did so many just Baby Yoda themed stuff, and it started making a decent amount of money, like every single day, to the point where my wife and I got enough money to like, we could put a down payment on a house. So it's literally, it was that timing where it was like, California's getting crazy. We have this money. I was like, I want to move to Austin for comedy. I was like, what if we invest this money into a house outside of Austin? Like, what if we do that? So then we ended up buying a house, a new build, sight unseen, from California in Kyle, which people in Texas are like, you live in fucking Kyle? We got a Costco now. Okay, we're moving on up. We have a Torchy's and a Costco. What else do you need? And HEB Plus. But we'd never been to Kyle or anything. We bought a house just on a random being like, let's do it. And we did that. And
what was your wife saying when you were printing all this stuff out? Was she like, it might work? This is like, oh, it's going to be great.
Dude, I got extremely lucky with that. My wife, since day one, has been down for all my silly goose ideas.
Okay.
Like,
well, she had to sit through your fucking open mic sets. I feel like
dude.
She's a real one for you.
And like, even before that, like when I was shooting music videos and stuff, she would be back there, like helping me like iron the curtains and stuff for like things. Like so fucking beautiful. Yeah. So she's always been down for that. And that's like what motivates me also, is I'm like, I want to get, like her dream has always been to be a mom. And for me, I was like, well, I want to give her that one day.
Sure. So
I was cream pieing all no, I'm just kidding. I was, but no, it was like motivation, and she loved it with like all the Baby Yoda stuff. She does the same stuff that I do with like business and merch and everything. And now we have a baby, our first baby. And
congrats, man.
Thank you, bro.
How old?
4 months. But all the motivation always was like, yeah, we want to build a life and we want to do it our way. And like, it's just, it's awesome. I always love just like, when people do things on their own,
yeah.
Like you and your business. Like I always root for people who do it outside the system, because I mean, when I came back from college and I didn't do anything with my degree, you get so many stares from people where there's like, okay, you have that, but now you're going to do music.
Yeah.
You think that's going to work? And then you're just always so embarrassed and everything.
Oh,
and the judgment.
Jesus. Yeah.
And how many people told me just to like you need to go get something more secure. Like, how are you ever going to do this or do that? And
Yeah.
I was like, man.
What did your parents think about you in all of these creative endeavors?
They always like kind of supported creativity in a sense. And I remember vividly driving, I think when I was like 19, and I was saying I wanted to do music, and like I don't think nursing was going to be what I wanted to do. I remember my mom saying like, you should have these things be a hobby. And then I remember being like, I'm not doing these as a hobby. Like, I'm not going to do that. And then she was just like, well, you're going to have to like work hard then to, do that. It's not going to be easy. And I was like, okay.
What did your parents do for work?
So my dad did construction.
Okay.
And my mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
And raised the kids.
And I think that's the same route or the same things my parents told me. They're like, oh, if you're going to do it by yourself, there's no insurance, there's no retirement plan. We don't really want you to go that route, but just work hard and, it'll work out.
Where are your parents from?
Mom's from Chihuahua, Mexico.
Okay.
Emigrated here twice, got caught twice, got deported twice.
Whoa.
Came back. This is like in the 1960s. Came back, got her green card, married my dad. And my dad is from Fort Stockton, Texas.
Oh,
so,
dope.
Yeah, he's an American here.
Dude, I love hearing like those stories. It got deported twice, came back a third time and made it. Because it's like a lot of people would have just stopped after that first time. Be like, yeah, I'm not getting in.
And I think I need to straighten this out a bit, but I think she already had like a sister living here, so she had reason to come visit.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then lo and behold, she's a stronghold MAGA supporter. So
oh, really?
Loves the guy. I'm like, okay, Mom, yeah, that's cool.
It's funny how so many people thought that like the immigrants and Hispanic vote was going to be
all blue.
Yeah,
a bunch of blueskis.
Yeah, dude.
Boy, were they wrong.
They were so wrong.
Yeah,
it's always hilarious.
It was pretty funny, and yeah, it's no. Being a business owner. One of my favorite movies that as you see on the screen right now for the viewers who are not able to watch or can't even look at the TV, Moneyball.
Oh yeah,
it's my favorite movie. Because
were you watching this or did you just put it up?
No. Well, I watch it because I don't know. It's my favorite movie and I want something on the background to, while I set up the studio.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite lines for that movie is there are rich teams, there are poor teams, there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's us. And I think that sums up the feeling of being a business owner or a creative is that you're eating shit constantly. Yeah. And you just have to learn to like the taste of it because there's nothing else you can do about it. So just press on and, figure it out and rebuild it in the algorithm.
Yeah. How did you go to school?
I went to school. Yeah. Did 2 years at Sul Ross State because my parents were like, you're going to go to college, you're going to get education. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, great. And then I got tired of living I got tired of living in a small town in Alpine, Texas. They have a small university there. And me and my buddy were like, let's go see what else is out there. Heard Austin is pretty fun. And so we couldn't get into UT. So we did the next best thing and got into Texas State. Yeah. And so got an education there in mass comm, electronic
You had
media.
that river?
What's that? Oh, yeah. Yeah, Sewell Park. It's awesome. It was very nice. The summer times were the best because everyone would leave and we just still hang out there and float the river. And it was a good time. It was a good time.
And you majored in media?
Media, yeah. So electronic media, which meant like writing for the news, filming for the news.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's where I found my editing chops and really loved editing video. And then eventually reached out to a company here in Austin that was filming weddings on a consistent basis. So I got into wedding videography, and that just trained me to be good at everything.
Dude, wedding.
Talking to people.
Yeah. You're doing photography or video?
Video.
For the wedding?
Video
okay,
work.
Dude, wedding videography is like, I've done most everything you can film, except for like porn, at least publicly. But like, wedding videography is the most stressful, intense. It's got to be, probably the only thing that would be tougher with it is like a wartime videographer. is because dealing with bridezillas and just like the stress of this is a one-time shot for someone's most important day of their life. Yeah. They don't know about the lighting. They're not waiting for you to throw the rice and get you to, I got to get this in 120 frames per second. And then they're like, no, the rice is in there. And
it was stressful. You learned a lot. You failed forward a lot. And thankfully you would utilize 3 different, or at least our company. And what I use now is 3 camera setups. So that way, if the photographer jumps in the back camera, you always have like a clear angle of the bride and the groom. So it is very stressful, but it just filters out the people who can't handle the stress. Yeah. And, I don't know, you just learn to work through it. The biggest thing it taught me was just how to deal with the temperament of individuals and not to take it personally. You know, they're in the moment, they're in high stress moments, you're in high stress moments. So you have to be the professional. Yeah. And again, learn to eat shit, learn to say, sorry, you know, we'll figure it out. We'll get it done. And at the end of the day, I've never lost a wedding.
That's awesome.
Nothing terrible has happened. I forgot an SD card with the footage on it, and it was an outside wedding. And I remember, I'm like, okay, I remember where I stored all the gear, so it's probably there. I drove out to Lakeway, combed the grounds, and found it. So,
oh my God.
And it was it had every bit of footage from my camera, and I was like the main shooter that day.
My God.
So thankfully, I found it. But at that point, I was like stressing out. I thought my life was over. But as I've gotten older, I'm like, if the worst thing that can happen is somebody dies. And in my industry, no one's ever going to die. So there's no point in stressing out about it. Meanwhile, after being with my wife for so long, I hear her stories. And it just translates to me to be like, it's fine, Ramon. Whatever happens, it's going to be fine. Meanwhile, in my wife's career, if something's not fine, it's probably really not fine.
Yeah.
So
that's a great point.
Yeah. So as long as you don't die at the end of the day and you're still above ground the next morning, it's fine.
That's why even with comedy, I think comedians get a little too serious about this in a sense of like I take it very serious in the sense of writing and performing and doing everything prepared.
As you should.
But there's some like you have to realize at the end of the day that you're going up there and entertaining people, and the stakes aren't that crazy high. And through that, you give a better performance. Yep. It feels.
Dean Stanfield, who also drives rally cars.
Yeah,
I was filming him, and he was taking me a tour. He was taking me out for a tour on the racetrack, and I asked him, "So, what are some of the skills that you learned in rally car racing that translates over to your comedy?" And he's like, this is stressful. This is like, I can't show up. I can't drink tequila before I go drive to solve my anxiety issues. I just have to learn to deal with it in the moment. And that translates over to his comedic performances. He's like, it makes me realize like it's not a life or death situation. The worst thing that could happen if I fuck up at a show is the audience loses $30. So that's it.
Yeah.
But if I fuck up during rally car racing, I damage the car, I could die, I could kill my passenger. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So we're in careers that really they're important, but they're really not that important,
Yeah.
So, when you first got to Austin or Kyle,
I hide that Kyle stuff, dude. No.
Well, I mean, it's everything's kind of dispersing out from Austin because Austin was getting a little bit hard to live in. Prices were rising and stuff. Insane. So you're part of Austin. It's fine. I don't care. What were some of the biggest changes that you've noticed from California and Texas?
In what sense?
In a sense, well, in anything, in prices of groceries and gas prices, and you could also comment on the comedy scene as well.
Gas prices were a lot lower. I love that. Yeah. Rent price was great. We lived in an apartment while the house was being built, and nice. I think we were paying $1,270 for a 1-bedroom apartment in Kyle. It was beautiful.
Yeah,
everything was new. Food prices were great. The comedy scene, traffic was also. It's starting to get more traffic here, but everybody
Yeah.
was like, oh, the traffic on a 35. But I'm like,
You
guys-
haven't seen traffic.
You guys don't know the 405.
Right.
You don't know the 101.
101 was the worst when I was living there.
It's insane what people think traffic is out here.
Yeah, even as a kid, I'm like, this traffic sucks. Like, this is
Yeah.
bad. And I come out here, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's like, I don't know, Mopac and 35 are always backed up, but it's still not as bad as, you know, like you said, 101, 405.
The comedy scene, what I loved about out here, and I still love it, is a lot of people in your first scenes that you're in comedy, not everybody there moved from somewhere else to do it. And it sets a level of like competition and how driven they are. But most of the people that were here in the beginning of, you know, that time, we all moved from different places because we all wanted to do this for a career, and we all took a risk. And this was way before the mothership ever opened. It was before there was a lot of shows happening. It was just an idea that, hey, some comedians are moving out west and gonna start a scene, and we all kind of just moved out here. So it was a lot of competition. And I think that, like you said, like a high tide raises all boats. There was like a level that you have to be to like move ahead in this. And a lot of different aspects, from just even being funny, because being funny, you know, when I first moved out here, it was a lot of like, I didn't want to produce shows because I'm like, oh, I'm just a comedian. I just want to focus on this. But then by necessity, you have to start your own shows. You have to do it, and you have to guarantee not only there was like the bartering aspect of like, yeah, if you have a show, you can get booked on other shows and do all this stuff. But it was like, I just want to guarantee my own stage time and getting better.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of like the stuff I book is to, okay, when I do like a book shows in San Marcos, I'll do 20 to 30 minutes and like I can produce my own shows and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's like the big difference out here is there's a lot of independence where you can do your own thing. And there's such a high demand in this area for comedy. In other places, there's not, you know, people who are just like enthusiasts, fans of just comedy in general. Like, you know, you have in some places where they have a Levity or an Improv or some other chain comedy place, and a big name will go there and they'll say, oh, let's go see so-and-so.
Yeah.
But here you have like people who are like, let's just go see comedy tonight. And that's what's amazing, because that's giving everyone an opportunity to become that headliner by constantly having people wanting to see just comedy at every level.
How do you get people in the seats, especially with like the San Marcos area? Because I think Joe was talking about trying to book shows down there, and it's kind of tough. So how do you get people in those seats?
We have we've done really good with like just local marketing, email marketing. If you have a show already and you know you've built like up some camaraderie and a little bit of a following with it, you can send out emails like, hey, we're going to be here and we're going to be doing this. And a lot of it is just work. That's like the thing is, it's tough, but there are just ways that work, and emails and barking and promoting and ads, they do work. You just have to work them.
Barking is when you're on the streets.
Yeah, I guess I should clarify.
No. I think it's a cool thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Making flyers and being strategic with it. Like, I don't necessarily, this is like a new thing that I've been thinking, is that barking on the day of the show isn't as effective as barking the day before the show.
Oh, really?
Because a lot of people are like, oh, like, because I've just noticed it, that people are like, oh, where is it? Oh, we're going here.
Right.
But then if you're like, yeah, hey, it's tomorrow night right here, blah, 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 they're like, oh, like it gives them a chance. But also barking gets people to come back the next week. So like, you're investing in your show, and it's got to be a regular thing.
How do you convince that comic who might be hesitant to do the barking? Like, how do you tell them, no, this is a good way of promoting a show, promoting yourself?
Brother, I've hit a point in my life where I don't even try.
You don't care anymore?
If because I've tried to I've invested so much time into trying to help, like, dude, do this. And there are a lot of comics that are just like, yeah, but I just don't want to do that. I just want to do this and get people to come to my show. But I'm like, it's not that simple. You know, with owning your own business, there's a lot of shit you have to do that you just don't want to do. but it's just part of the business. It's not fun invoicing. It's not fun writing up contracts. It's not fun doing so much bullshit.
Yeah.
It's fun shooting and editing and giving them that dopamine of when they are like, oh my God, this is amazing. Same thing with the stage. It's so much fun when you're on stage and you're making them laugh, or when they're showing up, the excitement of like, oh, we're packing it out. Yeah. And then after the high of people being like, that was amazing, blah, blah, blah. And then you get the pictures and you share it and you're like, look, I was in this picture.
Right.
But it's not fun being like, well, what chair rental am I going to go to? What microphone cables don't make that static sound? Why does this happen? And blah, blah, blah. I'm embarrassed to walk over these people with the fucking flyer.
The chair rental thing is very interesting to me because Joe, I went with Joe to go photograph at the Palace Theater up in Georgetown.
Yeah.
And on the way back, he's like, man, I'm so glad I didn't have to, tear down chairs. I go, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, like, when we do these shows, we have to provide the seating and chairs. I go,
yeah.
You mean the venue doesn't do that? No, we have to do it. So that's a wild thing that I didn't even think about.
I can make or break a smaller show.
Really?
Yeah.
The chairs.
Yeah, with costs. Because if you're on sometimes shows don't make that much money, depending.
Sure.
How much you've put into advertising. Like there's been plenty of times where like with a show you put $100, $200 into advertising with ads. Then you have a chair rental of, depending, sometimes it's $2, $1.50 a chair. And then if you need 50 chairs, that can be like $75 to $100. And then you're having to pay comics. And then if you're having to rent a microphone and everything, I'm always like, invest in it. Like just buy everything.
You have a microphone. Like the foundational thing to having a show. Yeah. You have to rent that. You have to think about
some places. Like I produce a show with East Austin Comedy.
Yeah.
Weekly. Shout out East Austin.
Yep. And my buddies, when I took them there, they were very appreciative of that venue and loved the show.
Yeah.
So it's a good spot.
I think you came to a show.
We did. I did too. Well, I came with Joe that one night.
And then you came again.
And then we came because I loved it so much. I'm like, this is fucking intimate. This is fun. Yeah, you might get made fun of, but you're going to have a good time. And you get to, I don't know. Can you say BYOB to this place?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And you get to bring your own beer. That's just, I don't know. It's a fun time because other comedy shows, when you go to the Mothership, it's, a 2-drink minimum and this place is, I don't know. It was so fun. And the level of talent there, including yourself, you brought Tommy Pope out.
Thanks, man.
It was,
you were there when Tommy was there?
Yeah. It was like I didn't know it was going to be that fun because my buddies were like, holy shit, that was Tommy Pope. I'm like, yeah I knew he was going to come, I had an inside note.
No, and that's what is so amazing. Like in my life, when I look back on East Austin, it's such a cool place because it is comic ran. Mm-hmm. It really is. I liken it to the Lost Boys in Hook. We're just, it's shoestring together and it's professional, but it's like all comics built that place and we produce it. And like, it's our home.
And it works.
Yeah.
It works.
And that's what's amazing is the level of talent. Most comedians that are there, and maybe on that night you were there, all those comedians perform at the Mothership. Yeah. Everybody tours and it is cool to see them in that like literally a speakeasy vibe where it's just like, it's raw. There's not relying on all this other stuff to make it like, oh my God, we're at, this place. But, that's a great place to produce because it is turnkey. Mm-hmm. They have the mics. They have everything set up.
They have the chairs.
They have the chairs. Everything is just you go in there. You have a door guy.
Are you saying there's a small fortune to be made if I buy a shit ton of chairs and am able to produce?
Brother, it's a side hustle that I've thought about so much.
Really? Okay.
Because no. Get into it because there's still a demand for it. Is that like so many shows you wouldn't believe cancel based off the chair rentals.
Holy shit.
Day of show, because it isn't just easy. There's no 24-hour chair rentals. So you usually, if you're going to pick up the shows, you need somebody with a truck. I don't tell people I have a truck. Only parade it around the cul-de-sac. You have to get them because they all close at like 5 or 6 p.m.
Yeah.
So then you're lugging around these chairs till your show starts at 9, and then you got to take them back to the chair rental the next day. Like, if there was a chair service that figured out a way to optimize and just drop them off an hour before showtime and pick them up after, like bird scooters, like if they bird scootered chairs, Which maybe we should start a business.
This is sounding very lucrative. We're going to make tens of dollars.
Yeah, dude. And that's the other thing is it has to be a labor of love because, man, the first shows I started producing, I think I had one person come to my first show. I had 2 people come to my second show. And those 2 people were friends of someone who was on the show. And then it's like the third show had 3 people. And then like it just builds. So you're dealing with that fucking humiliation of, and that's the other thing is sometimes when you're first starting to show, you're like, I want to put all these bangers on it. I want to have this comedian. So you're calling in.
It don't work like that.
You're calling in. Well, you get the biggest people you know that have the most credits. And then they show up to a place. I think the first show I did out here, rented like 40 chairs, had all these great comedians, like the top tier of the Austin scene, and we had one person show up. And it's just the most awkward thing to where a lot of people, they're just like, you pack it in, I'm done producing. And you see that a lot, like these shows pop up and then they're just gone. But it's like, man, if you can just get through that, it becomes so rewarding. And you appreciate, like I think there's something when it's hard that you appreciate it so much more when it gets better. Yeah. Like I always make it a point after every show to like thank the audience, like thank you guys for coming out here and supporting us. And I try to make an experience for them because I'm like, these people, whether it's just $15 or what, they spent their time with us, their Friday night with us. Some people, when I hear like they're like, I had a couple in the front row, they're like, this is the last date we're going on before we have our baby. And I'm like, that's so amazing. And I'm like, this is so cool that you spent your time with us. And then some people, they're like, we haven't been on a date in 6 years. We got a babysitter and we're here. And we're just like, this means the world. And like, I never get jaded to like I never want to phone it in with the crowd. And you see that sometimes where people are just like, I got 3 other sets tonight. And I'm like, dude, this is, I don't know. I really appreciate crowds.
How do you, in those moments when you had that one person come up to your show, how did you not give up? What was motivating you to just keep pressing on?
I think it was necessity. I think I don't know. I don't see myself doing anything else other than something creative. So it was never like, I'm just going to go do this if this doesn't work. Yeah. Same thing with having a kid. There's this thing, man, of the saddest thing I think would happen is if I have a kid and like I just stop doing comedy because I'm just like, I got to pay these bills and I got to do this. Yeah. And it was like this driving force to where it pushed me so much more to be like, I need to start making real money doing this stuff and producing and all that I can do because of this kid. Because not only that, like I always thought before, like I wanted to just be with my kids and be around them and everything. But like the most important thing to me, maybe not the most important thing, but I want them to feel like when they get older, they can do what they want. And just because it gets harder, that they don't have to go do something else. Like I don't want them to see dad, like dad had this dream, but he stopped because of us. No, like he made that happen. And I don't know if that's the right way to be about it, but that's.
I think you are very right in a sense that another gym owner that I had on here, James, he owns Iron Vault. He said the same thing. He's like, because I told him me and my wife were in talks, we're in negotiations. And my thing is like, I want to
negotiations to have a kid.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we're gonna have one.
Hell yeah,
I'm sure we are.
It's
but
great,
it's like the financial thing is the biggest thing that I cannot wrap my head around. It is so expensive. It seems so daunting to have a kid with 2 full-time jobs, but as an entrepreneur in a creative field where no one really needs me, it's just weighing on my head very heavily. And I go in that balancing act. Do I want to continue this pursuit of creativity, of this thing that I've created myself, or do I need to go to that safety net so that way I can financially provide for my family? And the gym owner was like, think of how much of a cooler story it's going to be to tell your kid that you were able to support him because of your fucking because of your company that you created. I'm like, James, that is 100% right.
It's so true, man. And I'll tell you this, when I found out, so we were trying to have a baby.
Okay.
And
I was about to ask you, was it an accident or?
And so I do basically, and this was part of the thing with like creativity and just like doing video. I work with clients on retainer. I manage their social media, do all their
Good
video.
for you.
Yeah, do all their video content, email newsletters. Like I would stack on extra little skill sets to make it a whole package.
Sure.
Which is something cool to do if you have that, and you're a smart guy, dude. You add on a couple services that make you their marketing department.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to do that,
I don't, because that's something I don't want to manage. Like,
Yeah.
And I don't have the skill set yet. I'm not going to try to fake that till I make it for them. That would just be bad.
When I found out my wife was pregnant, for a little while, but you usually wait like 6 to 8 weeks before you start telling people. Yeah. And I was excited. And here's the other thing. I had quite a bit of credit card debt at that point when we were. And but I had a plan to pay it off. Mm-hmm. And when I finally told my biggest client, and this was also another big lesson, was this client was worth about 85% of my monthly income at the time. I tell them in the same conversation, I go, big news, my wife and we had a meeting. I said, my wife and I are having a baby. Within 5 minutes, they're like, we're shutting our business down. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, I just told you got to stay open a while. So you
can't do this to me.
Yeah, I had one more month with them. And then I was like, fuck. And it put me into overdrive. And I happened to hear this great quote on another comedian's podcast. Like that same day, I was like stressing over this. And he says, babies are born with a loaf of bread under their arm. And it's like an old Italian proverb. Okay. And it means that when you have a baby, it somehow provides for itself. Like babies are born with a loaf of bread, meaning they can take care of them. Like you find a way to make it work. Okay. And I just really like bread. It motivated me, and I literally I went so hard into promoting comedy and getting more clients like on retainer, but also I like refined the way I did things. So like by bringing on more clients and more shows, I still had the same amount of time, and like I was freeing up time and doing it more, like making it more safe and fail proof. By having more clients and like not relying so much and overextending. And it ended up working out, man. It worked out great. I ended up paying all the debt off. And by the time we were having a baby, we had no credit card debt. The hospital bill was paid for before we were having the baby.
Do you know how much that hospital bill was? So
we did a birthing center, and I think it came out, we were making like $400 payments. And it came out to like $4,500 or something like that. Oh my God. Insurance, did that cover anything? Insurance covered a little over half of it.
Okay, good. All right.
So we paid $4,500 out of pocket. But
damn, still,
we had issues with our daughter 2 days after, and we ended up in the NICU for 3 days. Yeah. And that bill was fucking, that's where they really get you. Yeah. They're bringing you free food while you're in there, but you're like, nah, I'm paying for this. Brother,
it ain't free.
Every night, the cost of what it was, I could have been in Bora Bora in a little hut on the water for what they're charging to be overnight. All necessary, though.
No,
But it just, you find a way, and you just, and I mean, we're getting that paid down.
Good.
But, it's just, if you have the creative brain, and you do, you figure out ways. You grow to the challenge, and you be uncomfortable, and necessity is like the biggest reason for growth.
Go ahead.
No, you get out of your own way when you have a kid. You just go, Like what's cool is, this is the gayest quote I'm ever going to say, is I thought I was building this world for me, but I'm building it for my kid. Is like, that's so fucking gay to say. But like it is, because I realized like, I've always wanted to be in control of my life, and I've always wanted time to do whatever I wanted. But now I'm like, I wanted all of this just to spend time with my kid and to give them everything.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's even more rewarding, and just it's so much fun, dude. You're going to love having a kid.
All my buddies are like, to the same point, they're like, yeah, it sucks, but there's moments in there where there's no other feeling to describe. I can't describe how much I love this kid to you, Ramona. You just have to experience it yourself.
Yeah, it's like before, you ever seen Pocahontas?
Very, very long ago.
You know about painting with all the colors of the wind?
Yeah.
Before I wasn't painting with any of the colors of the wind. It was just me, you know? And then you have a kid and you unlock all these other different elements of life. You're painting with all the colors of the wind, brother.
From some of the videos that I watch, you're really into Disney, aren't you?
Is
that because of the child, or is it because you're already...
I'm a Disney adult.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
Talk to me a little bit about fatherhood. What was like when you left the hospital? What was your day-to-day life like after that? How much sleep did you not get?
You're sleeping in 45-minute windows, if that, because early on, so she was born small, not crazy small, but they want the baby to get to its birth weight within like 2 weeks. So you have to feed the baby a lot.
Yeah.
And so the baby needs to eat every 2 hours. But on top of that, the baby needs to be held up for 30 minutes after eating, then changed, and then be settled.
What about this whole bit that you just said that the baby provides for itself? Where did that go?
Yeah, the bread comes later, dude. That's what you find out. I'm still chasing that bread, dude. But no, it's extreme. The newborn phase there's nothing like it. It really is the trenches of sleep deprivation, testing your relationship, and just it's hard because especially if you're a first-time parent. You have no idea how it's going and how to do things. So you're figuring it out. This little thing screaming at you at 3 a.m. You're trying every trick. You're on YouTube watching an Indian guy, how to settle a baby. And it's like, you're in it. And it's so exhausting. But I would get the sundown scaries because she would get fussy at sundown. And then it would just be sometimes hours of just trying to settle her. And she's just like screaming. But that all is going away. 4 months now, she's like a sweet little baby, and it's so rewarding. And you do realize how much time you waste before you have a kid. You have so much free time. Like I will tell you this, and I was told this before I had a baby, you don't realize how much free time you have until you have a kid. Like it really is, you have all the time in the world before kids. And then now, only with a baby, it's like, everything's around the baby.
Yeah.
But this is why you work so hard. And this is like what you've already established with your business is great. You have the business, you're making money, and you have it going. It would be much harder for you to start that up after having a baby.
It's true.
Which is why before having a baby, I worked a lot on trying to establish things and systems to where as I have a baby, it can keep growing and expanding. I did a lot of, work before. It's still hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard, but...
What does your wife do for work?
She works in my business.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Right now, a lot of it is focused on they're like moving pieces of where...
Sure.
So,
okay.
And right now, the focus is on her taking care of the baby and doing all of that.
When did the level of responsibility hit you in the face? Like, I am now responsible for this life. Was that at the birth? I
think during pregnancy you start having those feelings because your wife starts eating different for the baby. Yeah. And then you're taking care of her because she's getting tired, and so like the responsibility starts there. But like the responsibility, and especially going to the NICU on day 2 makes you just so fucking responsible.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just it's stressful, but it's like there's nothing like, I love my dog, but like there's nothing like that level of love and just like connection to something. It's nothing like a kid. It's crazy.
Did you feel that strong connection? Is it a boy or girl? Girl. Did you feel that strong connection with your girl?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just right off the bat?
Or
because I feel like I've heard some people say the child is more loving or more bonding with the mother because in the infancy stage they are, nursing and whatnot, and the fathers are like,
which is dope because when you can't like settle them, you're like, sorry, she just wants you, and then you're like, and then you're like back on your phone. You're like, you need water.
So you felt a sense of gravitational force to this child immediately.
Okay.
Immediately,
and I loved her, and it was just such a connection. But there's also so much fear because of how much you love this thing.
Right.
But the love grows like daily, like where now as she's getting older, she'll look at you and start smiling and laughing. And that's like, you know, in the mornings when you go to get her and she's smiling at you and everything, it's completely like you just melt.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's just every day. You see new milestones every day. Like after this, our big thing that we're doing, we're taking her to the pet store to show her fish, which is just like, that's the greatest thing. If you had asked me 5 years ago, what would be a perfect day? It wouldn't be going to the fucking pet store to show my daughter fish. Yeah. But that's like how simple and like all the fluff gets taken out of your life. When you have a baby, it's just like, there's like, I would worry about shit that doesn't even matter. So much stuff. I don't care about dramas.
Yeah.
Really. It's just like, it's very like cathartic. And I think, I don't know. I think having kids just makes you go to a different place by necessity.
Okay.
Like there's so much stuff even, cause I'm not perfect. Like my wife and I will still argue and I'm still dumb and, but I'm like when you have so many different things, like they always say like idle hands are the playthings of the devil. I don't know how religious you are, but
grew up Catholic.
Oh really?
Did you grow up Catholic? Oh yeah. Grew up Catholic and learned a lot of things from that religion, but then I found out all the bad things that the Catholic religion did. I'm like, ooh, I don't want to be part of that anymore.
They hide that in the
beginning. Yeah, they do. They do a very good job of that.
They don't show you a scoreboard in Sunday service, dude. Could you imagine that? They're like, look at me, fucking the Crusades, undefeated. But having so many, when you have like so many different things going, like I really do feel like I have to be so careful and just like optimized because it's no joke. Like it's a joke. It's comedy. It's a joke, literally. But like having a business, having a family and doing comedy, I don't have a lot of room for error where connected to, as opposed to like a 23-year-old, all they're doing is comedy and living in a house with 7 other comics and they only have to make like $800 a month. So like with arguments with my wife or anything that happens, I'm so much more solution oriented. I don't enjoy fighting.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy conflict, even if that's with friends or anything that doesn't involve me. Like I don't just like put myself into things because I'm like, I don't have time for this.
Your conflict resides in the business and figuring out the solutions for those conflicts. That's where you want to put your energy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's almost like a hobby of a lot of people is just to get involved in conflicts.
Yeah. And I don't really hang out with those people. I've never come across them, honestly. I guess I just had a natural way of filtering them out.
That's great.
Yeah. I had a few other questions, but we're well over an hour. Shit. Yeah, I know. Time flies.
This is a fun podcast.
Good. I'm glad you had a good time. I try to ask all the questions of what is, particular or what is specific to your industry. So where do you see comedy going for Austin, Texas?
It's a great question.
Is it going to fizzle out? Is it going to grow? Are we going to be sustainable? I don't want it to go anywhere. I want you guys to make it sustainable for us as fans.
I do wonder about it, if we're in a boom or just a new level clicked in of what comedy is. Because comedy did have a boom before and then it fizzled out. But it almost feels like comedy moved to almost like a different arena of entertainment. It's now like one of the main forms of entertainment. In a sense of like sports and like there's comedy fans that are just like they just love to experience different. They're so like educated and know all the stuff. Like they will go like a lot of the people who like come to my show, an early show and they have like 10 people with them. I'm like, oh, what are you guys doing? Like, and they're like, oh, we're hitting your show. Then we're going to this show and then we're going to this show.
That's awesome.
So they're like purists and like they want to experience the round of comedy. So in Austin, I would assume that it's hit a fever pitch, but I'm sure it mellows out a little bit. Which I think it does. I think everything, if you like look at the stock market, anything in life is going to hit like a fever pitch and then it's going to settle, which I'm good with. I think moving here at the right time that I moved here, I was able to get in because there's like a lot of people that move here and there's a lot of people that hate on Austin comedy.
Really?
Yeah.
How so? Why?
They think that it's like the bro comedians that all moved here. There are people on the outside looking in.
Well, they haven't dived deep enough
I know. It's at every
make
level.
that opinion.
Yeah, at every level, there's people who are like, "Oh, it's just this," and blah blah blah. But I think that it will be one of like the big scenes. It's just a new place where comedy is a hub.
Yeah.
It could fizzle a bit. I don't mind it fizzling. I hope comedy as a whole stays. Because I mean, I make money off of it.
Yeah, sure.
But I also look at it like I want to establish other aspects of this, like having the background in doing like t-shirts and merch. I want to start building out like comedy focused merch and like bring that in. And then also having a background in video. I want to do more like YouTube stuff. And I've started going to places in Austin and filming, like learning how to do their thing. Like I went and did curling at the Austin Lone Star curling club. And I want to do like YouTube content. So I think as a whole, and this is like naturally progressing this way, comedians have to like diversify themselves.
Yep.
Podcasting, videos, merch, just entertainment in general, and the live touring. And it seems like all those other things feed the live touring. So I just think it's like a great time, period, to be like an entrepreneur, creative person.
I think you're right in that podcasts are super essential for comedians.
Yeah.
Because that's how we as fans get to know who you are. And one of my favorite comedians is Matt and Shane. And to hear all of their banter in their podcasts and to hear like bits that they perform on stage coming from their podcast just gets me so giddy, and I'm a little gay for them, but
let me ask you this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's super important so that we know that the authenticity in the podcast, you feel that, you see it and you hear it. And then when you go see them on stage, that authenticity is already ingrained in your brain, and then it comes out on stage, and it just allows for a better show as a fan, because I've invested so many goddamn hours in listening to that stupid podcast. And when I see them up on stage, I'm like, oh my God, they're great. It makes for a better experience in my opinion. So I think, podcasts are essential for comedians.
Yeah. And do you think, so I just brought back my own personal podcast, 7 Minutes in Evan.
No.
And here's the thing: it wasn't.
It takes that long?
Yeah. It wasn't. It was a free form. Sometimes I do solo episodes, and then sometimes I've had guests. But I was toying with the idea of just doing 7-minute episodes, just completely polished on subjects. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that almost defeats the purpose of what a podcast is supposed to be, because I feel like the more raw, and if you just talk, and you have like a regular thing rather than you're just trying to do 7 minutes of bits.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where
I don't know. I mean, definitely do it, play it out, see how it feels. But for me, it's about like, are you that person up on stage that you are on your everyday life?
Yeah.
If so, that's so much more impactful for me as a fan. I'm like, oh, he is that, not funny, but he's an approachable guy. He's good natured. He's not doing it for the likes or exposure. He's just that person. And then when I go see you on stage, I'm like, oh, it's a little bit more polished. Now there's there's punchlines there, and it's more of an entertaining factor. But just to peel back the curtain of the individual, to expose that authenticity, I think that's very valuable from you as a comedian, and valuable to me as a fan, audience member.
What made you want to start a podcast?
I did this. Well, I got tasked with doing the podcast for a company called Silencer Shop. And it's a very niche industry where they sell silencers. Oh. I know nothing about silencers, and they tasked me with talking to individuals who make the silencers. We can only talk about the logistics of it for like 30 seconds before I run out of things to talk about. So I just started asking questions about who they were, what do they do, how do they get into this line of work, if they came from a military background, what was that like? And just peeling back those layers, expose the individual. And I'm like, I actually like this guy. There's more to it than the silencer. So that kind of got me thinking about like, what if we expose those individuals who are in very important industries that we kind of rely on. Like, let's expose those individuals. For example, the first guest who I ever had on this podcast, his name's Robin, and he controlled...
Batman?
I wish. Oh. In a sense, he was, because he controlled like the timing of all the traffic lights here in Austin.
Oh, wow.
I find that fascinating. We use those every single day, and there's an individual who's monitoring those to engage in traffic flow. And, you know, people always complain about the traffic here in Austin. And I just asked him about that, and we got to this, you know, if you want to decrease traffic, well, you have to take cars off the road. And so he talked about creating public transit, which Texas will never do because they don't believe in it. Big oil and gas, they want cars on the road. So it's not a solution. Well, it is a solution, but it's not going to get implemented in legislation and et cetera. Yeah. So just hearing those conversations made me understand how society works, and I wanted to expand that. Now, the key when I was doing it back then was I had a 3-camera setup. And my thought was, if I overproduce the shit out of it, it's going to get the likes. It's going to get the follows. It's going to pop off and send me into podcasting, you know, the Hall of Fame. It didn't. And then I was like, yeah, that's a lot of work to do. And I was just starting my company. So I had time to set up the lights, set up the 3 cameras, you know, but it's also very expensive. So I stopped doing it because, 1, it was expensive, and 2, I started to get busy. Then flash forward to wanting to create a space for the gym, because my wife wanted to work out at home because of her schedule. So I was like, what if we did like, you know, kind of a thing where I have my man cave, my office, place where I can store all my gear. And so, yeah, I used the funds that I generated last year to build this place out. And then I got to thinking, well, shit, now I have a place to do the podcast thing. Yeah. So then I picked it back up, and I just simplify it and make sure that the conversations are getting better. I'm asking better questions. And instead of adding more production value, I'm just going to add more value to the guest. We do headshots, you know, that way I could find out more who you are. Yeah. And a lot of the guests so far have been like clients, and I only get to speak with them via email. Yeah. And some of them are also musicians, so I don't get to talk to them before the show, but I like who they are as individuals, and I want the people who do follow me to hear more about them. And I don't know, it's just kind of a cyclical thing where we're kind of just feeding each other and producing content and talking about mostly about the guest on the show. And just engaging in authentic conversations to peel back that individual to hopefully, you know, raise the tides for everybody.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So that's how I got into it. And also, I'm a huge narcissist. I love to hear myself out. No, I'm kidding. Rather, we're well over an hour.
Fuck yeah, man.
Anything else you want to talk about? Any shows coming up?
East Austin, Friday, 6 p.m. every week.
Every week for the duration of how long? Forever?
Anytime, brother.
Awesome. Okay.
Once a month in San Marcos. Last Friday of every month at Comedy and Caviar at the Fairmont in Austin.
Sick.
And just everything else that I am Evan Lopez.
Is Roz ever coming back?
Dude, I don't even think he exists anymore, to be honest with you.
I see him on social media all the time, and I'm like, I have so many questions I want to get on the podcast, but I don't think you're ever coming back to Austin.
I think he might be stateside right now, coming up here pretty soon. He's great.
Yeah.
Have you met him?
Yeah, we met him that night. I was with Joe, and he looked very tired because he was coming in from a flight.
Yeah.
And then he did a few spots.
Yeah. He's the man. He's also... with making East Austin Comedy Club is great, and he kind of will just let you do.
He's making it great again?
Yeah, he's making it great again, dude. Big MAGA guy, Rosa. But that's what is so cool about Austin, and what's happened is there are a lot of just wacky ideas of just like starting like East Austin Comedy Club started in a house. Well, it started first in the Tiger Den, which was a little small venue in the back of like a bicycle renting place. Oh. And then the owner also had a house next door for rent, rented the house and turned it into a comedy club. Okay. Then that comedy club during South by Southwest got shut down because it got like raided by the city because there was so much stuff happening. So we were all a bunch of homeless.
It got swatted.
Pretty much. But it was a house that got converted into a comedy club. It was crazy. And then now it's over here where it's at and off 6th Street, and it's like becoming a real place.
It's a hidden gem. It's so fucking awesome. Grab a drink right across the way at La Holly.
Yeah. They need to start paying us. We give them thousands of dollars of free.
No, yeah. When you guys told me it's a BYOB, I didn't know that. I'm like, all right, well, the HEB is too far. I don't want to fucking walk all the way there. I'll just go to this bar. And they gave me a 6er of Pacificos for a premium price. I'm like, all right, fine. I'll
Bastards.
wear it. I know. But anyways, it's still a good time. Still had a blast. But all right.
Thank you.
I think that's it, man.
I appreciate
No, thank you, man, for coming all the way from Laredo, Texas.
Yeah, dude. Amen.
Cool. Let's take your photo and then you can be done.
Amen, brother.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. Evan, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time and efforts. And also, thanks. He gave me a little sticker. So thank you for that, Evan. Really appreciate it. More importantly, thank you all to the audience. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the likes and the comments. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one. God bless.